Hey everybody, welcome, welcome, welcome. This is Sunday evening if you are Eastern time, and maybe Sunday late afternoon if you are Pacific or Central time. But welcome to an update. I am going to be interviewing a fellow YouTuber that has an amazing audience. And the thing that I really, really like about this young lady is that she's definitely on the pulse of what's happening, but she comes from a positive perspective. And I really appreciate that. I respect that. She's been doing this for years. I'm sure everyone watching here will definitely be familiar with her content. But I thought with so much going on in social, it would be a great opportunity to have this conversation with the beautiful, lovely T. So let's welcome her to the show.
Hey,
Welcome,
Christal.
lady.
Hi. Hey, everybody. Thank you for bringing me on. I really appreciate it.
No, well, first of all, kudos to you. Like I said, I am a fan and subscriber, and you're also someone that I really, really appreciate just being so on top of what you're doing, but maintaining a positive approach to it, which can be difficult when you're talking about celebrity gossip and what's going on. So how did you manage to keep positivity as something that you like was a staple for you, but be able to continue to grow with your fans?
I think for me, it's about putting yourself in somebody else's shoes. So, regardless if you're talking about a regular person, a celebrity, a politician, at the end of the day, we're all human.
Right.
So, it's okay to call out a behavior, to call out something that you might see that that person is doing wrong.
Hmm.
But I always stay away from, just the ad hominem attacks, going
Yeah.
in on people's physical appearance, their size, their children. And I think that's the problem sometimes with social media is because of that anonymity. People think they can just go really low below the gutter, and it's not
Right.
okay. You can
Right.
get your point across and still be respectful, and still stand firm in your stance.
Right, absolutely. You're right, but I think that's not always easy for people.
Mhm.
Obviously, it people love hearing negativity on others for whatever reason.
Right.
Um, I mentioned the show Love and Marriage Huntsville, and there's so many other shows. I mean, Real Housewives the huge franchise. People get excited about talking about this conversation. I know Portia had a show that came out that there was a lot of controversy about.
Hmm.
But where's the balance between saying I don't agree with something and still treating that person with respect and treating the story with respect? Where do you kind of draw that line?
I think for me, you have to be fair because again, you're talking about these people's real lives. At the
Yeah.
end of the day, even though it's called reality television and there's a camera crew following them around, these are their real stories in their real lives. So I think it's just about handling it in like a mature and delicate manner. You can still throw a little bit of shade, you can still be funny, because we're here for that, right?
Right.
We're not robots. You're gonna talk about the nuances, but I think that there's a fine line between throwing a little bit of shade and saying, see, now Portia's doing way too much, as opposed to like just dragging people.
Yeah.
And it seems like we live in a time and space where people go for the drags, but I think that's very short lived, because you still have to run across people, and you don't want to make it where you're responsible for somebody's mental health because you
Right.
don't know what people are dealing with behind the scenes. You don't know what people are thinking when they have to do those type of shows, because so many times we complain about reality television like it's ratchet, I would never go on there. But then for some people it's really been able to spin off into other opportunities for them.
Right.
So you want to be careful to not diminish them so much that you're affecting their other brand deals. So
Absolutely.
I just try to put myself in other people's shoes. I think
Absolutely.
there's a way that you can do it and just still have fun with it, be respectful, state your opinion without going below the gutter. And from what I've seen, celebrities appreciate that about me because I'm gonna keep it real, but I
Yeah.
don't have to drag you and talk about your looks and talk about your baby's father and all that extra stuff that has nothing to do with what we're watching on the show.
Right. No, absolutely. I think you do a great job with that. And I think that the fact that you've been able to amass that type of audience and still stay true to yourself, that is very commendable. So I'm just saying, from one sister to another, I love you and respect you for that because we
Thank
just need
you.
some positivity. Everybody likes the drag, but you're right. What does that do to people's mental health? Right.
Mhm.
So let me ask you this. So with Kanye and Kanye West, Kim Kardashian, we see a couple that is their issues have played out. To me, they kind of they expose so much of their relationship to the public, but now we're in a situation where I'm watching Kanye post almost subtle threats to Kim and her new boyfriend, and then we see Kim coming back and saying that this isn't okay. She doesn't feel safe. At what point do you think social media may not be the best platform for situations that are playing out when it comes to family, and this actually is coming to where it could be potentially dangerous? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think part of it, I did a whole deep dive breakdown on the whole Kimye situation. And I think a lot of Kanye's frustration and anger is because he put so much into like Kim Kardashian and her family. Like he literally turned them into his own personal muse. And to now see his muse that he helped elevate, because granted, Kim was who she was, the Kardashians, they already had a brand, but they were not taken seriously when they first came out. He definitely helped to legitimize their brand. And I think he feels like because he put all this work into the whole situation, the marriage, the family, the siblings, the mom, and he helped to take them to another level, he somehow feels like, they owe him. Like, she owes him to be with him. And at the end of the day, I don't care who it is. Once you feel like that relationship is over and you want to move on and just things are not working out, everyone has the right to walk away. And I think we have to remember that, people are mad at Kim, but she really tried, she really tried to be there. And now she wants to move on. He needs to allow her to do that, because after a while, the rants do come off where it's almost like, okay, you're doing a bit much. It's starting to look bad.
Yeah. When you see fans threatening Pete, that are supporting Kanye, to me, there has to be some accountability. I think, we saw with President Trump, we saw finally Twitter will put people in Twitter jail, but finally they took away his rights, period, because what he was doing was inciting violence. Obviously, we saw that from what happened on January 6th, 2 years ago, I guess, almost. So with Kanye doing this now with, and they're subtle. But do you think that there's a responsibility on behalf of the social media platforms that this content's going out? Because if Kanye is putting, I think his tweet said something like, nothing's going to be able to stop you from the wrath of a man that wants his family back. This was to both Pete and Kim. At what point do you think the platform should step in and be like, okay, this could potentially lead to something that could be unsafe? Or do you think everything should be all's well that ends? Freedom of speech should be king.
Right. And we love the term freedom of speech, but freedom of speech, there also comes responsibility. And I think that's where people like influencers, celebrities, that's where you have to understand that there's a fine line. And granted, we can't control all our fans. Like sometimes people like you so much, they go so hard for you because they feel like they know you personally. And I think that's where, as influencers and celebs, you have to tell your fans, no, I don't need you to go attack somebody on my behalf. I got this. If I have something to say, I can handle myself. Right. I don't need a bunch of background chorus singers, so I think it's okay to tell your fans that, like, fall back, because at the end of the day, you're messing up my brand if you're going over there trolling and sending him death threats and things like that. So I think that we do have some type of responsibility when we see it, because we can't control what adults do. But once you see it and it's being brought to your attention that this is being done, at that point, you need to call off the dogs, quote unquote, because these fans, they're going to go hard for their faves.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
I think that there has to be some accountability on the person that's posting. I'm definitely like, President Trump was responsible for that attack, because even if he didn't tell people to do it, he was inciting them with the information that he put out on social. So I think it was well within Twitter's rights to suspend him. And I think that if we don't see Kanye stop, that's probably going to be the same thing that happens to him, because Pete is not doing anything but dating a beautiful woman who a lot of other men have dated as well. Like, but I get it. If you guys are just tuning in, I am talking with the very beautiful, lovely T, who is a queen up in these YouTube streets. And so I wanted to have her come on because there's a lot going on. And I think that the way people digest news and information is definitely changing. One of the biggest changes, I think, is the final acknowledgement that the Wendy Williams show is no longer. T, what did you? Because I think most people that interview people, I think my main mentor is in my head is Oprah, but I can't say that Wendy Williams didn't have an influence on me as well. Mm-hmm. So, what were your thoughts when you heard that Wendy show was coming to an end? We kind of probably saw the writing on the wall, but now we know it's definitely coming to an end.
I think for me personally, it was almost like the end of an era. Because like even like through my teenage years, I remember Wendy Williams from the radio and, you know, always spilling the tea and going there where other people were too scared to go. She was definitely a pioneer in her field. And I mean, you love her or hate her, you got to give her props. You know, she definitely paved her own way and she put in a lot of work to get to where she's at. So it's sad to kind of see her go like this because it wasn't like, I almost feel like we're kind of cheated. There was like no farewell party, you know, no last show with Wendy, like, you know, bye Wendy, bye Wendy. There's like none of that. It was just her show's gone. Yeah. You know? So I'm gonna miss it. You know, I'm gonna miss her. You know, maybe she'll come back in the future, but I definitely think that with her show being gone, it's going to pave a way also for new media. Like people are getting their celebrity news and gossip and entertainment from other mediums as well.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. One of the things I mentioned to you before we went live was that, you know, I noticed that Wendy Williams show, they would instruct viewers to go to YouTube, right? So that was like almost, and you see that on Kelly Clarkson, Ellen, all the mainstream shows. They want people to go to YouTube. They want to capitalize on that YouTube audience. And I actually saw your name mentioned as one of the people that a lot of people felt could have did a great job taking on a show, not replacing Wendy, but, you know, having a daytime show. Do you think that TV and social media are kind of, what do you think the relationship is going to be, you know, moving forward? Because if all the shows that on that level are going to YouTube and you're
now, YouTube. Now I got to keep it real. This is why I have to be honest, because it's somebody who started from the bottom. You know, who got it out the mud. I didn't go to journalism school. I went to school in integrity. So, you know, researching, learning about lighting, camera equipment, microphones. I mean, to see where my video started, you know, 10 years ago to where I'm at now, I'm very proud of that journey. So I do kind of feel a way when I see like major corporations coming into our quote unquote space, because YouTube was a place where people like me and you and people, you know, who weren't allowed to get into those spaces. Like I couldn't just go meet with CBS and NBC and say, hey, you know, I'm a young Black girl and I think my voice is important. They'd have laughed me out the door. So I was like, you know what? I want to talk about things like this. I want to let people know what I'm thinking and show that it's cool to be different and think outside the box. And YouTube allowed people like me and others that platform. So for me, it's a love-hate relationship. While I love the fact that YouTube is growing and, you know, people are taking it more seriously, because before we were kind of seen like a joke. We were like, oh, those YouTubers, and, you know, that's just what we were. We're like YouTubers. And now it's like, no, we're social media influencers and we have enough, you know, quote unquote power or, you know, enough of a viewing audience to like really push the culture. Absolutely. You know, not just me, but there's many people on YouTube with big platforms. So I guess for me, I just wish that a lot of the mainstream media would also respect the grassroots YouTube commentators as well. You know, bring us on. Let us do like a little commentary segment. You know, work with us. Don't just be in competition with us. Right. Don't sit on y'all's, you know, network and then throw shade at us like, oh, those YouTubers. Like, but then y'all watch our content and then regurgitate them on y'all show. Right. That's all I'm saying. You know what I'm saying? Like, so let's work together, not against each other.
I'm not mad at that. And I'll give credit to OWN, because they did reach out to quite a few people that do this to be a part of it, because they realized, wait a minute, this show, and I'm speaking of Love and Marriage Huntsville, but a lot of the shows, even Put a Ring on It, had the same issues with yes, you can tape something over what, a 3 month period, but what happens on those off seasons allows viewers and fans to keep up in real time. So that's where people like yourself and other YouTubers are, basically helping those shows stay relevant when they're in their off season, and I think they realize that. And I think others should as well. That's a good point though. With Wendy Williams, I'm like, why does Wendy Williams producers want people to go to YouTube? Like, that's a total different, you're on Fox. You want the YouTube too. You want the YouTube and Fox. But there's something to be said with authenticity. So what you do, they wouldn't be able to really duplicate. So they kind of, because it comes from a very organic, your followers comes from a very organic place. Like you said, working for 10 years, going through the changes, they've had a chance to grow with you. So it's very much like a Wendy Williams audience, but I think they're very different. So what do you think as far as like celebrities being able to, because in my thought, you're right. Wendy Williams is the end of an era, right? That's changing. Sherri, I'm a big fan, but Sherri is a different host than Wendy.
Right.
Wendy was always the voice for urban culture. She set the tone a lot. I don't think Sherri's going to have that same type of audience. She probably has a little crossover, but I think they're very different. What do you think about just the audience that will be captured for that time period?
Yeah, one thing about Wendy is she wasn't worried about celebrity friendships.
No.
And I think that's the difference too with us as commentators on YouTube. I mean, as you grow, yes, you connect with celebrities and they slide into your DMs and they like your work and stuff. But at the end of the day, they know that the average YouTuber is still going to hold them accountable. We're still going to say what we got to say. Whereas with Sherri, she's a part of the industry. Like these are her coworkers. So if one of her, quote unquote coworkers or celebrity friends is viral for something crazy, can she really go in and, speak truth to them in their situation when they've been friends for 10 plus years?
Yeah.
That's what we're going to have to see. But Wendy was definitely the queen of that. Like, she understood her position. Like, I can spill my tea on you. I can talk about you and you can still come on my show and we can chop it up and have a good time. But that's where it ends, because I don't want it to, to conflate with what I have to say to my organic audience.
Yeah. That's true. Did you see all the articles about the fact that the show was not really catering with the different guests that were co-hosting? They felt like they were not really catering and were losing some of Wendy's very, very authentic urban audience. And they were out of touch with a little bit of that with some of the co-hosts. Did you have a chance to see that? And what were your thoughts on that?
I think the problem is when they try to bring celebrities in to do commentary and give opinions, because again, you're going to get very watered down, I don't really have an opinion one way or another. It's going to be very soft shoe. So I think for a lot of people, they weren't here for it because they're so used to Wendy's style of not really caring, just keeping it real. So I think where they messed up was chasing celebrity, interviewers, where if they would have came to like YouTube and used influencers, because we don't really have no real relationships with the industry like that.
Right.
So I think it would have came off more authentic, like a Wendy, because that's what people were used to. But when you were, tapping celebrities on the, to be on the show to talk to other celebrities, well, then it just looks like two friends talking, and I can just go watch YouTube.
That is a good point. That's a good point. I didn't think about it from that perspective, but you're right. Wendy did not. You always felt like Wendy was going to have the viewers back before she would have the celebrities back. Like, I'm going to hold them accountable for y'all. So there's that feeling of trust that the viewer had with Wendy, because we feel like she's kind of more like one of us. She's not, those are not her celebrity friends.
Right. And then she's going to ask the questions that we want to know.
Yeah.
Because it's almost like kitchen table talk, right?
Yeah.
And except you're seeing it in public with, some of your favorite celebs. So she's going to ask real questions when Tiny comes on her show. She's going to ask her what everybody's talking about on social media. Whereas if she goes like on another platform, they might just talk about her latest book and her hairstyle. But Wendy's going to be like, well, I know you see what's trending about you and so that's what we were here for with Wendy.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I agree with you. I hate that it ended like this.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think that it ended like this because she probably wasn't ready to let go, even though it was time to let go.
Mm-hmm.
Because after a while, I kept thinking, I'm a publicist at heart. So I'm like, wait a minute, something's not right. Like there's a lot they're not telling us. This doesn't make any sense. What we all know about Wendy is that she loves her son.
Mm-hmm.
She was crazy about that ex-husband of hers, and she works like she loves her job, her career. So there's no way that she was giving up on any of that
Right.
without almost being like, forced out of it. And I just feel like I wish that we had a chance to celebrate her, and maybe there will be an opportunity to do that. But
Mm-hmm.
I agree with you. I hate that it's going out without like, the bang that we would have wanted it to have, wanted to feel and celebrate with her, because she was a trailblazer and a pioneer. Like you said, regardless of what people think about her, she
Mm-hmm.
did her thing, you know?
Definitely. Definitely.
So what do you think about, and I got some other questions I want to ask you, because you talk about such a vast assortment of topics.
Everything.
Because so many people were throwing around names. Like I said, your name did come up several times. But another talk show that really is kind of like a blend between, to me, television and social media was Red Table Talk, or is Red Table Talk, because you got Jada Pinkett Smith, who is, A-list Hollywood. So she has access to all of her friends. They all feel like friends to me when they come to the table. But she does have some very, very insightful, thought-provoking conversations. But it's all done on Facebook, which feels very much like, being able to take that big Hollywood budget and set up, and being able to, kind of mobilize social media.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think? What was your thoughts on Red Table Talk?
I like Red Table Talk. I thought what was really interesting about it was the three different generations.
Yeah.
I thought that was different. I think that's what set them apart. So it wasn't just Jada's perspective as, a mother. Then we
Mm-hmm.
also had her mom on there, and we had, an older woman's perspective. And then you had Willow, that represented the young women. So I
Mm-hmm.
thought that was just very interesting to have three different generations, because even though a lot of times they agreed on certain things, a lot of times they saw things totally different. And one of the shows I really liked was the girl who got caught in this school cheating scandal.
Oh, yeah.
Becky from Full House's daughter, so I'm forgetting her real name.
I know you're talking about. Yes.
But I enjoyed that show, because even though Jada was giving her a platform, and Jada was trying to be understanding, and
Mm-hmm.
Willow was also being understanding, because they're about the same age.
Mm-hmm.
Jada's mama wasn't having it.
Yeah.
She was like, nah, this is not cool. This is your privilege that you can even come on here to our show and, explain yourself. So I thought that was dope, that, everybody's still allowed to have their own opinion, and it's not just everyone agreeing and just going with what Jada says. So I like that about that whole dynamic. And we don't even want to talk about the Will Smith situation, honey. The entanglement around the world.
I don't think that was him. That was, they need a couple more episodes and a little bit more truth for me to really like give them kudos. I give them kudos in the fact that they gave the narration for their own headlines. But but what I took, my favorite Red Table Talk was when Jordan, when the whole thing happened with the Kardashians and Jordan, and they were just like, nah, we all came together. This is our family. She's a part, her father worked for Will. And they looked at her as family, and they were like, we're going to not only give her a platform, but we're going to tell people that they need to hold on with the judgment and hear both sides of the story, because this is not the way it is. So I gave kudos to see the Smiths actually stand up and, against the Kardashian machine, and be like, no, you're not going to do her like this, And
it was kind of cool, because it's almost like they involved themselves in what would have technically been social media blog fodder.
Yes.
So I thought that was very interesting, because all of this started on the blogs.
Yeah.
The whole scandal. So for them to like almost involve themselves in the whole blogging world, and, go in there and say, even if nobody else will give you a platform because of the Kardashian machine, you can come to our Red Table Talk. And that was a really good episode.
Yeah, it was. It was a really good episode. And I think it really showed, because I think what makes people connect is when they see reality and authenticity. And so that felt very much like they were, how we come to the aid of one of our family members, like, nah, I
Right.
don't care what this is, we still are. And I think it reminded people, because does a very good job, and she was doing that even before Red Table Talk, of really having conversations that were vulnerable and transparent. But to see them, basically say, yes, we are, don't get it twisted, the Kardashians are powerful, but we are the Smiths, and we're saying that ain't gonna happen right here. I was like, okay,
Right.
I'm here for that. I'm here for it. I like Red Table Talk, and I think what you said was really true about the three generations.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, also by Jada being a celebrity, and she's always been one of those celebrities that's been really down to earth as far as how she communicates. I think that would only work with a celebrity like her, because she's always been very outspoken. She's never really played the Hollywood game to an extent. So people want to come and talk to her, and they want to be honest, because she makes you feel like, okay, it's cool to be honest and transparent.
Yeah, and I think people have always just liked the Smith family in general.
Yeah.
They haven't really been embroiled in a bunch of controversy and drama. We all grew up on the Fresh Prince. So we've literally watched this family come together from the time we were kids.
Mm-hmm.
Seeing Will and Jada get married, and then Trey was Jada's stepson, and seeing how Jada treated him just like her own. And then when she eventually had her own kids, we were there. So we kind of watched this whole story, unfold. So I think because of that, people just really appreciate the Smith family in general.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. So I want to ask you, well, first of all, if you guys are just tuning in, thank you so much. So many people have said, there are people in the chat saying that they watch YouTube before they watch television. I think that's definitely becoming the new wave. But I want to ask you, because over the last 2.5 years, almost 3 years, we definitely have seen people go to social media in a total different way, almost for connection, right? Because for 2 years ago, we were all shut down. We couldn't go anywhere. We couldn't really be around other people. Events are just now starting to open back up. So what effect did you see, if any, on your audience and how people were relating to, the conversation that you're having once we were all shut down and people really didn't have an option to do anything besides stay on their phone or, be on their computer?
For me, I was one of the first, people, I would say, in the Black spaces to tell people about COVID. So I was talking about COVID coming to America back in December 2019.
Wow.
I had gotten some information from somebody in China. Like, I had to disguise her voice and everything. They don't play. The CCP don't play, honey. So I had to disguise her voice and really tell my audience, because so many times as Black people, we're the last to know about things like this.
Yeah.
So once I got the information, I shared it. I sent it to everyone I knew. I told everybody, please spread the video like wildfire and start stocking up, start preparing. So when people was fighting over toilet paper and, hot dogs, the tea sippers was chilling. We've been stocked up since December. Okay. So it's just like, it's getting that information out to the people. And one thing I noticed during 2020, it was a comfort. Like, people, because it made me live stream more because I had nothing to do. So I would live stream like at least twice a week. And it was really relief for people. It was almost like a way, because we couldn't leave the house. So it was a way to interact with the outside world. The chat was popping. People were having good conversations. So it was almost like that internet was a safety blanket for us. Because once my computer was off, it's like I'd be going stir crazy. Only thing I can do is walk from my room to the kitchen to the living room and back. Everybody was gaining weight because we was in the refrigerator 50 times a day. But it's like social media was really, it really helped a lot of us mentally, because like I always tell people, everybody doesn't go home to a huge family. Not everybody has a husband, a wife, kids, a dog. Some people, when they leave work, like, work is their social environment. So once they leave work, some people come home, nobody. Yeah. So for them, these live streams and, these connections on Twitter and on Instagram, that is real for them. So I think with the lockdown, people found other ways to entertain. People found, and it also sparked a lot of creativity. I'll say that. People started businesses that they would have never thought they could have started. They took on new hobbies. I mean, people was learning how to, I know me, I started trying to learn how to DJ. So people watching a lot of like DIYs, people are learning how to cook. So it was a really good thing that came out of a bad situation.
Yeah.
People made the best out of it.
Keisha in Love says TT's live stream held us down for 2020. And that's the beautiful thing about it, though. I think that it did help a lot of people feel connected in some kind of way, because it was scary. And I remember being at home and just thinking like, a lot of people are feed off the energy of others. And like you said, if you can't go to work, in the grocery store, you're afraid to look at anybody. We had our mask on, we're afraid to touch. But when you have that connection online and it feels a little bit like normalcy because it's conversation, you get the ability to laugh. I think that is healing mentally, in ways, which is also another reason why I really appreciate the fact that you stay positive, because you have the potential to really like influence people. When they're listening to you on a regular basis, you become really like one of those influences that's in their ear, so what you choose to do with that is very impactful. Now, I asked that because we know that we were dealing with COVID and all these different viruses, and now it appears that there's the potential for us to be involved in a war with
World War III. Yeah,
and yes, and you talked about that. I think, and I was like, wow, because my channel, we most of the time talk about relationships. We'll talk about different types of businesses sometimes, but really a lot of it is relationship driven. So for you to talk about that, first of all, I thought that was amazing, because I think people are scared. They want to know like what's going on. And when they hear information, at least it allows them to not just be in a panic. Like the more information you get, the more level-headed you should become, I think. Because if you don't know about something, it just feels like the big bad wolf. You start to actually understand it, and it's like, okay, now it's not so scary. Even though it may still have some issues, you don't feel ignorant, which can be very upsetting. So I saw an article earlier today, and I was like, I got to ask T about this, that said when they polled people recently, people felt like if Donald Trump was in office, that this war with Russia and Ukraine would not be happening. It was literally about 60% of the people polled felt that Biden being in office had contributed to this potential war and us being involved in it eventually. And so I wanted what do you think about that, as far as how quickly public opinion shifted to support ex-President Donald Trump?
I think a lot of that are people who are scared, frustrated, and they don't know what to think. People just want to go back to a happier time. Like I say this all the time on my channel. I really miss 2019. And I regret that I didn't take it. You know what I mean? Like I didn't take 2019 by the horns like I should have. Like I really wish we could go into a time machine and travel back. And I think when people are responding to polls like that, it's almost like they're stuck in nostalgia. But if you understand history and you understand, just not to even go deep on your channel, because I'm not trying to do that. But if you just understand history and how things work in cycles, this was going to happen anyways. Yeah. Regardless of who the president was, because at the end of the day, you have a bunch of different nations. Okay. They are the puppet masters and they are playing with us as if we're puppets. All this stuff that's going on, it's not going to affect Trump or Biden or Putin or any other president or their family members. They're good. It's affecting the regular people like me and you. It's affecting the citizens who have nothing to do with NATO, who had nothing to do with this agreement, do not go 1 inch to the east that was said by Gorbachev. We have nothing to do with that, but we're going to be the ones affected. So I think when people say that this wouldn't happen under Trump, those are people who are just looking at it as surface level. Yeah. This was going to happen anyways, because he has been itching to go and invade Ukraine. He wants Ukraine to be back being a part of Russia because he wants it to be the USSR. So the rabbit hole goes so deep with this whole situation. And I think that, just to say that if Trump was in office, this wouldn't happen. It sounds good, but I don't believe that. I think that, destiny manifestos. So now that we're in this, are we going to just sit there and keep, longing for 2019 and longing for when Trump was president? No, now we have to understand the situation that we're in. We have to understand that heating prices are going up. Fuel is going up. The grocery stores are getting bare. If you have not started stocking up, please stock up. Get gas, save your money. This isn't the time to be frivolous and just buying whatever, because gas right now in Cali hit $6 today.
I saw that. I saw.
So those are the things that they should be polling on. not things of the past. What's affecting us now? You have enough in your savings to cover, because my heat bill last month was $2 something. This month it was $400 in 1 month's time. So those are the things that they should be polling people on and making people aware of what's to come. Because again, not everybody's on YouTube. Everybody isn't subscribed to me or, other people who talk about these topics. So I think the media has, they have a responsibility to talk about things that are relevant and to make people aware, the folks who watch CNN, the folks who watch Fox, and not just take these polls.
Yeah.
The poll is not going to change anything, right? At the end of the day, he's not going to come back and be president tomorrow.
Right. I know there are people that are hoping that he can come back and be president, but on that, I 100% agree with you. I'm wondering, to me, it feels like there have been some huge changes just in our culture, politically, especially. A lot of that due to President Trump, because things just were so different. And I think it had been building for a while. I think the reason that he was able that he got in office was because of where the country was after Obama, and Obama was able to get in office because of where we were after Bush. So it kind of like you said, history kind of repeats itself. And then we see people that are able to be the answer to the country's problem at that time, right? They fit, they fit whatever we're looking for at that time. Do you think that, well, I would just ask you this. What do you think of the mark that Trump left on the country after being in office and the way things were done so differently than any president before? He used social media. He weaponized social media a lot more than any other president ever has done. And it just, he was a reality star. Very different. So what do you think about, what do you think there will be any changes because of what happened while he was in office that will be long-standing?
Yeah, I think Trump's presidential legacy is going to be, it's kind of complicated, right? Because you have people who are diehard Trump fans. They agree with everything he did. And then you have other people who just do not like him.
Yeah.
He did some good things as far as taxes, business, things like that. But he definitely was not your typical president. I mean, the fact that he just had Twitter fingers was just amazing to me. Like, this man lives on Twitter more than like the average teenager.
Yeah.
So I thought that was very different. But I just think that once he left office, it just, even though Biden was in and people were initially really excited when Biden won because they were just tired of Trump. And I think it wasn't even so much of him as a person. It was the divisiveness.
Yeah.
Like, you just saw it everywhere. Like, literally, you couldn't talk about anything without politics being brought into it. Right. I mean, it really separated families. If you didn't see things, if your father was a Trumper and you didn't see things his way, it's like they were cutting you off, and vice versa. And I think, to me, that's his legacy, is that it caused just a great division in this country. The whole left and right, paradigm. And I think that's the part that was like really sad, because before Trump, for the most part, Americans got along. We were one. But after Trump, it's definitely two different Americas.
It is, but I wonder, like, did we need to see that? Because I didn't realize there was so much. I live in Atlanta, and when you go outside of Atlanta, about an hour either direction, and to the rural areas, I didn't realize there was such a huge difference in opinion and culture. And like I said, I grew up in between Ohio and Oklahoma, so I definitely was used to rural areas. But to see that there was still such huge division when it came to how we looked at things and how we, we had a black president. So we're kind of feeling like, okay, we're moving towards a different place. But Trump kind of uncovered, no, you're not. There's just as much racism as there ever was. And so for me, I almost feel like it was a mirror that we may have needed to see, because I did not realize it was so polar. We have such, Trump lost not by a huge margin. There were a lot of people that really still supported that division and actually wanted to see that. I mean, look at what happened on January 6th. So I agree. I hate that it did show that, but I think we may have needed to see that because we may have needed to understand that we think we're all on one page, but we're not.
Yeah. And, a lot of it, when it boils down to it, is people's thoughts in their head, thinking like, I'm white, so I'm here, and these Black people and minorities, they're taking over, and it's not really the case. Yeah. But it's like that type of talk helps to, propagate that, where people think that, the Black people are taking over and this country is going to hell in a handbasket. And it's not, or people saying, oh, racism is dead, and gone. You guys are always screaming racism. And then we have George Floyd. Yeah. And that happened where I'm at here in Minneapolis, and to watch that and to see how it tore this city up, and the city has still not recovered, just the burnings, the riots, the whole people's homes, the stores, the looting. I mean, I still have PTSD from everything that we went through, so it's like, no, I think that was like the spark that woke a lot of people up. Like, no, racism is still here and it's still alive. And if you're going to be white, you need to be an ally and stand with us and understand that this is not okay. And you need to call this out, because at the end of the day, there's only one race. It's the human race, right? Right. And we all have to figure out, how are we going to get along? Because at the end of the day, like I tell people all the time, I can't control how I was born, being a brown-skinned Black woman, any more than, a white woman with blonde hair, blue eyes. That's just how God made us. So at some point in time, we have to figure this thing out. If not, we're just slowly going to destroy this planet. We all have to figure out a way to live on this planet. We only have one Earth, and it's like, it's crazy because the resources are being taken. These wars are breaking out. And when you really look at the crux of the matter, all of these people are fighting for resources. Yep. Everyone is thinking that their livelihood is at risk, their ethnicity is at risk, and it all boils down to resources.
Right. And that's 100% true. My dog is going off in the background. Unfortunately, he is by himself today. The other dogs are not here, so he's going crazy. I definitely agree with that. I think we have to figure out how to live together. But I would rather know how you feel so we can work it out than just live in ignorance. So while I hate it, but I can say from my perspective, this is the first time I had white friends come to me and say, Christal, I'm sorry, I did not know. And I'm like, how did you not know? How did you not know? Like, so even though that it wasn't necessary for them to do that, I did appreciate them saying, wow, we did not know, we did not.
And it's about being open. Like so many times people want to get angry. You can't because everybody was raised different. Everybody comes from a different background. And a lot of times, if you just sit and talk to somebody of a different race or a different background, at the end of it, you'll find out that y'all have more in common than not. Yeah. But it's about, just making that space to allow people to be comfortable to come and talk to you, and then you educating them on what you need to educate them on, because none of us know everything. Nobody's perfect. We all make mistakes. We all make assumptions. We all have prejudices, so it's about being honest and wanting that open dialogue. But I definitely agree with you, Christal, when you say, I'd rather know what somebody really thinks. And that's one thing I can say that I did appreciate about Trump, is that he exposed a lot of people. And I'd rather know that, you don't want me in this sundown town than me walking around, what I'm saying, at 9:30 at night looking for some milk.
Let me be on my way. Right.
Yeah. So it's like, I want to know, because I don't want to walk with blinders on, like, and that's the thing. And the way that we know that is to have open and honest dialogue, because it's not about left versus right. At the end of the day, it's about human beings and trying to figure out how we're going to make it through the rest of the next few years. Because since 2020, it just ain't been right, honey.
It ain't been right. And now with this war, it's just like, where are we going? Where are we going? Let me ask you, because I don't want to keep you too long. This has been a good conversation, but I want to ask you. I feel like I think one of my favorite speeches was Tyler Perry when he accepted the Icon Award, and he talked about building a table when he was turned down from doing different things. He built his own table. I have that, recorded. I listened to it, and I think you're an example of someone that did that. That saw a wave years before mainstream would catch on, and that built a table that is now, in my opinion, a lot more impactful than some things that we grew up watching, right? Because things are changing, and there are a lot of channels, magazines that weren't able to kind of get a hold of the social media wave, and now are really behind trying to catch up. Some of my favorite magazines I grew up with, like, they just are not in that space because they weren't able to make that transition. So I applaud you for being able to see that wave before it became one, and you've built a table. You have created that space. So what's next? What do you want to do next? What do you see for the future for your channel, and where you want to take your viewers and supporters? What's in the next, let's say, 5 years, 5 to 10 years?
Man, I really enjoy what I do. Like, I really, if it wasn't for like my supporters, my tea sippers, I wouldn't be where I'm at. Like, I just really enjoy it. I think for me, I really want to get into spaces where we're allowed to just freely conversate. Yeah. I think it's getting to the point now where platforms like YouTube, it's so much censorship. Yeah. And I think that we can't have true, open, and honest dialogue if we have to use terminology like the R word, S assault. We're all grown. We should be able to talk about sexual assault and how to protect young girls from, those type of things. So I think for me, I would really love to work like on a space that's free to talk about stuff, and talking about sensitive topics. It doesn't mean that it has to be disrespectful. It doesn't have to be lowbrow. But, even being comfortable enough to talk about even what we're going through right now with this potential war, a lot of YouTubers are even scared to talk about it because you'll be dealing with demonetization and they'll pull your live stream feed. So I think I would love to work on a platform or create a platform where people can talk about things without having to deal with like so much constraint. Because one thing about our community is that we miss out on a lot of information because, like I tell people, enjoy the gossip, enjoy the entertainment. There's nothing wrong with it, but also always know what's going on around you in the real world, because that's what's really going to affect you, not who Portia is dating, So maybe, maybe in the future, maybe I'll do like commentary on some shows or something. Do I want like my own TV show? I'm not really sure, because I know that's a lot of work. There's a lot of responsibility.
Right. It might be more work than what you're doing now. Trust me, it would be different, but you'd probably be like, because I think when you do something on that level, I was independent. I had my own PR agency for years. And when I would go look at the big agencies, I'm like, y'all ain't working near as hard, because it's just, no, you're definitely going to work. The small person works a lot harder. And everything you're doing now, definitely, trust me, Wendy was not doing all that work. She's coming in, they're going to tell her what to say, and she will do her thing. So it would be less work, but maybe not as satisfying, because she also had to say what she's told to say. So you have to figure out. That's the beauty of your own table, is you set your own, your own dialogue and your own rules to an extent, because money always plays a part in what you're really able to say and what you're not. But I did see that even when it came to the vaccine, it was amazing how when we would have people come on and talk about that, just would give people another option. It was that, they were quieted. And so it's like, wow, we really don't have freedom of speech like we think we do.
Yeah. And even the freedoms, like we had a Discord meeting, because that's one thing I do too, is like I have separate meetings and, roundtable discussions with like some of my audience that are in different spaces, like, outside of YouTube. And, that was one of the things too, it's just like not letting things like that divide us. You know, like just understanding the big picture. Like you're literally mad because somebody chose to get a vaccine or
Mhm.
not get one. Like
Yeah.
it's just this divisiveness that we don't need it. You
Yeah.
know, so I just hope that we can get to the point where, you know, we understand that we have a certain level of freedoms here, and I don't take that for granted, because in
Mhm.
a lot of other countries, you can't go out in the street and scream Black Lives Matter or
Right.
any lives matter. You know,
Right.
you say something against the government, you're going to be in a concentration camp somewhere.
Mhm.
So, you know, I do appreciate that the freedoms that we do have here, but then I also see where it's slowly slipping away. And
Mhm.
that's where, as people, we have to fight and we have to support those people that are willing to put their necks out there to give you the information, to say the truth, you know,
Yeah.
because everybody can't be a truth teller. Everybody can't risk their job. People have families, they have kids, but the ones who are willing to do that, you have to support them, because
Yeah.
it's not easy. You know, nobody wants to be on an island by themselves, you know, shouting and trying to be the voice of the people, and then nobody's supporting them, and then now they're just out there by themselves, and they're like, well, dang, I shouldn't even say nothing.
I shouldn't have said anything because
Right.
the people that I was trying to save don't appreciate it, you know,
Yeah.
and weren't able to understand the enormity of what being a truth teller, you know, is. So interesting, but I appreciate you. I appreciate you agreeing to this interview. As I said, I'm definitely really proud of you. And someone said you should definitely be over 2 million views. What you do is extremely important. I think when Black women are able to speak with their own voice, and I love the fact that you show that we can speak to a variety of topics. There's no boundaries or limitations on what we have opinions on. And I think that's really important as well. Like, I believe that celebrity gossip is something that people enjoy because it's like a guilty pleasure. But if you can sneak in a little bit of truth and a little bit of real education, kind of like put that in the medicine, like, you know, wrap the medicine
In the
in
food.
something that tastes good, right?
Mhm.
And you're able to digest it without realizing. And sometimes people don't want to know that they're being educated, but you get a little bit in there every once in a while, and it makes a big difference. I guess my last question to you, because you are obviously a Black woman, but you also are Nigerian, and
Mhm.
I wonder if you feel your perspective is different even from that cultural angle.
I don't really think so. You know, I think for me, I've always told people I speak for myself.
Right.
Like, I don't want to be the so-called quote unquote voice of all Black women,
Right.
all Nigerian women. Like, this is just my voice, just my
Mhm.
opinion, you know,
Right.
because we all come from so many different walks of life, so many different backgrounds. But I will say, like, you know, coming from a Nigerian culture, you know, there's certain things that are ingrained in us, like,
Yeah.
you know, working hard, getting it, building your own table.
Hmm.
Because back home, there's not a lot of resources. So sometimes you have to build things from scraps,
Yeah.
you know, and just appreciating, you know, what you have here, because so many people, you know, just even something as simple as having light, you know, not having to run your home on a generator,
Hmm.
you know, and going to the faucet and having clean water come out. Those
Yeah.
are things that I just appreciate, because I know that I have family members back home who don't have that luxury. So I
Right.
think things like that is what just helps to keep me humble,
Yeah.
you know?
Do you think that there seems to be, I have a good friend that is very ingrained in basically sharing our history, African American history, and also connecting us back with our ancestry in Africa. And I think there's been a movement to really kind of form some healing, you know, bridges between African Americans and Africans. And I think that would be amazing if we can continue on that. I know there was like a welcome back to Ghana, a movement that was done, I think last year. And like I said, a friend of mine, Eric Majet, went over to Ghana and bought some land there and was showing, you know, just kind of taking away this stereotypical image of Africa that a lot of African Americans unfortunately have, that was taught to us, obviously.
Mhm.
And then there's obviously issues and feelings on that side as well. Do you feel, or are you aware or cognizant of that feeling of there kind of being some type of reunion or at least connection that has not been there as, since we were taken years ago.
I mean, I think it would be a wonderful thing because you're even seeing the divide online
Hmm.
with, the African American community and the African community.
Very much
And
so.
I think, it's sad, even the Caribbean culture as well. And I think it's sad because at the end of the day, we're all Black people. But I also understand that there also has to be a respect factor.
Yeah.
And people who are coming from the diaspora, I don't care if you're coming from Africa, the Caribbeans, you also have to show a certain level of respect for the people who built this country, which were African American people.
Yeah.
I don't think we can ignore that. I think once we understand, how the media perpetuated certain things to make us feel about each other, because growing up, what African Americans saw of Africa on television were, starving kids with flies around their face, living in huts. And that's not the case. And what Africans were fed growing up were images, that thug imagery and, Black men killing other Black men. So you're coming into a situation with a stereotype.
Yep.
And that's why I say it's all about just simple dialogue. I have friends from all aspects, African American, Caribbean, African, and just to keep that open dialogue and understand that at the end of the day, we're all on the same page and it's all about respect.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes that gets lost on, some Africans where they feel like they don't have to respect the African Americans in this country who helped build this. And I think that once that is spoken, because I think a lot of it is validation. People want to be seen. People want to know that you recognize them, that you recognize what they've done. And I think once those conversations are sparked, a lot of that divisiveness will go away. Because at the end of the day, we have to work towards one goal. Because when they see me and they see you, they're not saying, "Oh, she's Nigerian, she's African American." They're like, "Okay, that's a Black woman."
They're Black, right? No, I agree 100%. And I think that once you realize that it was, divine intervention, it was the way it was designed to poison both sides against each other. And we realized that, like, why would I, you got to wake up and be like, why would I listen to the people that caused this on the character and the livelihood of my ancestors? It doesn't make any sense. And vice versa, for Africans to think, well, we've been fed these images, but it's because they were trying to constantly oppress them. So I think both sides have to understand that. But I've seen a little bit of a connection, more so than I have ever, in my life. And hopefully more will come of that, because you're right. They don't see difference. I mean, I don't know that you're Nigerian unless you say it. I may be Nigerian too. I just don't know. Like, we don't know. So there is no reason. Again, it all leads to divisiveness. And I'm not even saying that we have to, right. Mwadi said divide and conquer. That was the intent. And unfortunately it worked really well, but I don't think it's ever too late to repair and mend and heal and restore. And that all comes from conversation. And so conversations like these. So I appreciate it. I appreciate you again. Yes, I definitely, you definitely will be at 1 million, but you definitely should be even further than that. I'm telling you guys, I know how difficult it is to do something and be positive and not give in to the salacious bullshit that can cause people to be attracted. But when you're doing it from your own authentic self and you're as successful as you are, that is like a huge kudos and acknowledgement of your brilliance and your tenacity to being authentic. And I appreciate that.
Thank you. And I appreciate you for bringing me on as well. I don't do interviews, like, very rarely, but I seen that you're positive and you're doing your thing as well. So I just felt comfortable to come on here and interview with you. So just thank you for giving me this space to come on and talk to you and talk to your audience. I really appreciate it.
No problem at all. Let me ask you one last question, and that's just for inspiration, because I know that nothing happens overnight. No overnight successes do not exist. So for the people that are watching and are listening, and we'll watch this later, what advice or just inspiration can you give them as they're trying to tackle their own dream and do something that belongs to them and may need a little bit of encouragement to keep moving forward?
One thing I always tell people when you're trying to set a goal for yourself, open up a business, be careful who you tell.
Mm.
It doesn't make any sense to share your hopes, your goals, and your dreams with people who are not on that level, who don't have that forward thinking mentality. You want to get yourself around like minded people
Yeah.
because energy attracts energy. So why would you tell somebody that you want to start a boutique or, a catering company to somebody who's just comfortable just working a 9 to 5? You want to get around other entrepreneurs, other like-minded people, and
Mhm.
understand that it's okay to get mentors, you know, listen. Listening is a big key. So many times we think we know it all. I learn stuff from people every day. And
Yep.
sometimes knowledge can come from people that you wouldn't even expect it. I've had teenagers straight school me on stuff that I had no idea about. So
Mhm.
always be willing to learn, always be willing to listen, and share your hopes and dreams with people that are going to be genuinely supportive of you and genuinely happy for you, because
Absolutely.
that's going to be your biggest motivator. You don't want to tell somebody your goals and the whole time they're thinking bad thoughts or saying, well, it's not going to work out, or oh, you doing too much. You want people who are going to, just encourage you and just speak positivity into the things that you want to bring into your life. So
Absolutely.
that's my advice that I would give anybody.
Watch who you share your dreams and visions with. That is definitely true. I think it's important that you have them and then you have to guard them just like you guard your heart. The Bible says, guard your heart, for within it is the well springs of life. And I think in that heart
Yeah.
is your dreams, your visions, your goals, and all that. You have to be careful of the company. And I'm sure you can attest to, Lovely, see that a lot of times the people that are the bigger supporters are people that don't know you.
Yeah. It
Unfortunately,
still blows me away. I
yeah.
mean, to like meet people at different events, or even when I do Zoom meetings, and to have people cry and tell me like how much I've inspired them, and
Yeah.
they bought a house because I told people when 2020 hit, like, y'all see these interest rates, now's the time to buy. And so many people came back and said that they wouldn't have known to go and apply for a loan and get a home. And it just makes me feel good. Like, it warms my heart to know that people were able to change their lives in some way, somehow. And then you look at some of the people closest to you in the real world, quote unquote, and they don't even watch videos.
Mhm.
Like, they'll come and be like, what do you think about this? I spent 3 hours editing. Here goes the YouTube link. Go ahead. Those are all my thoughts and opinions. Like, no, we're not about to have a conversation, and it's on YouTube. So yeah, unfortunately, it's usually not your friends and family that's going to really support you. It's
Yeah.
people outside of that space. And once you understand that, then you're not going to be disappointed. I think a lot of people get disappointed, like, oh my God, my friends don't watch me, or I asked them to share this link and they won't share it. Well, they're not going to, because again, when you're growing and you're elevating, it bothers some people.
Yeah.
Because if I'm not doing nothing with myself and I'm just comfortable being here, well, now I feel kind of bothered that you're trying to elevate. And
Mhm.
so, because you're going to be a constant reminder of where I could be, we
Yeah.
both had the same potential, grew up in the same neighborhood. So I could be very well on the same level that you're at. But because I don't want to pursue that, or I'm too lazy, I just don't care, it makes people feel away. So it's going to be people outside of your immediate circle that are going to see you from where you're starting and where you're elevating. They're going to just support it
Yeah.
and go hard for you. So those are the people that you have to worry about. Those are the people that you have to focus on.
Absolutely. I could not say that more. My daughter DJ'd at a big restaurant for the first time, and she said,
Oh,
"Mom, none of my friends came but one." I said, "Well, you're on the right path then, because
mm-hmm.
that's how it goes." They not, but there are people there that came up and were telling her they enjoyed it. And I said, then you're on the road to success, because everyone is not. A lot of times your friends and family see you through their own lens of how they see themselves, and they may not see better for themselves. So
Mm-hmm.
they're looking at you and putting all that negativity and doubt and self insecurities that they have, and they're putting that on you, and you don't
Right.
need that. So I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Keep doing what you do.
Definitely.
You guys, I'm sure everybody in this chat is already subscribed, but if you have not, make sure that you go and subscribe and support and our sister. And thank you so much. Like I said, keep doing what you're doing. It's definitely needed. There's been people in the chats just talking about how much you've helped them, and that is worth more than money in many different ways. So I definitely it's good to give someone their flowers while they're here and while they're in the middle of doing it. So consider these your flowers.
I received them. Thank you so much, Christal. I appreciate you.
Have a good week. Have a blessed week.
You too. Bye, everybody. Thanks for coming through.
All right, guys. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. That was an inspirational interview with the very, very lovely, lovely T. All you tea sippers, thanks for coming over and hanging out with us and listening to her interview. I enjoyed seeing the chats and definitely enjoyed hearing that from her. It was a little inspiration that I needed today. So in any case, I love you guys all. I will be back tomorrow night. We're right back to our Ready to Love interviews. Tomorrow at 8, we have AP is coming through. She was let go last Friday. So make sure that you tune in tomorrow at 8 right here. I love you all, and I'll see you tomorrow.